Good morning. Oh shit, I'm totally paying attention to this instead of football. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. I'm Ray Orsini, and this is my co-host, Mr. Matt Topper. Thanks for joining us on MSP Community Live that we do every week. And this week we're actually going to do twice this week, but we'll get to that. How you doing,
We
my friend?
will. I'm doing awesome.
How was your
Getting
football
ready
day?
for Jets kickoff next Monday Night Football tomorrow. Really don't know what's going to happen. All I can say is it would be very difficult for them to play worse than last year. So it's got to be good.
I say that with the Dolphins every single time. But we were up before the countdown started. Now we're down 31-27. So if I get
Oof.
distracted or you see me laughing and cheering along silently, you know what happened.
I
Um,
know I have the scores up in another window, and I'm trying to not look at any games going on right now.
yeah, but we're not here to talk about football, although we can talk a little football. I mean, get over that old trope of guys, IT guys don't like sports ball. I am feeling better. Thank you, Alden. I appreciate it. I'm feeling much, much better. Spent most of the day out running errands and hanging out with my 10-year-old. We went to Dick's Sporting Goods and he basically had the run of the place, having fun. What about
Nice,
you? What'd you do
nice.
on this fine Sunday?
So not too much. I went out and got all the yard work done, and once it was done, sat down and just got ready for. So my wife is a Ravens fan,
Oh,
so
wow.
we
Okay.
were. So she was the 1 o'clock game today. So after that, I was just hanging out on the couch watching football and getting ready for today's show. Pretty boring day actually.
Well, I've talked for the last 2 weeks that I'm going to be redoing my backsplash. I bought the backsplash 2 weeks ago. It's been sitting in my kitchen. I've been to Home Depot twice today. I have another delivery coming tomorrow. Because like all
Only
home
twice.
projects, you need to hit Home Depot at least 3 or 4 times. So
Easy, and it's only a success if you had to buy a new tool somewhere along the way.
absolutely, 100%. So, and I did, and I got something I absolutely had no need for, but I got a new workbench with a sliding 12-inch compound miter saw. Um, because for
Because
stick and
why
peel
not?
backdrop or backsplash, that's what I need, right? So, but
Yes, of course.
yeah. But we're here to talk about MSP stuff. And for those that don't know, Matt and I are absolutely football fans. So we're doing the only thing we can do. And we're moving MSP Community Live to Fridays. It'll be now, if you look at the lower third, it'll be Fridays at 11 a.m. So we'll do in the middle of the day so we can watch our Sunday, Monday, Thursday, sometimes Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday, sometimes Saturday, go football.
And
Uh,
we're really doing that for the audience because we will get distracted if we try and do it Sunday afternoon.
and honestly, I don't want to compete with the NFL. So, not gonna lie, I don't want to. I would totally watch this and pay attention to the game and eat my wings and drink my beer. But we're like you said, we're looking out for the audience. We don't want them to be distracted. We want them to get
All
all
right.
the MSP goodness. So,
So I will stop talking about football after this, but how hilariously awesome or perhaps bad would it be if we waited till one of our teams was on Sunday Night Football and then tried to do it then?
oh, that would be rough. That would be rough. I mean, the Dolphins and the Eagles are playing right now, or the Dolphins and the Packers are playing right now, but I'm totally paying attention to this. I'll do my best for the next 55 minutes. So,
So
so
is
with
the
that said,
backsplash done now? I wasn't clear from the story. Is it finished?
no, it's not. It's still sitting in the boxes. I got the trim today. I'm not sure I'm happy with the trim. I got the miter saw coming tomorrow. Um, Not that I
Do
need
you,
it,
do you
but
have a laser level?
I do. I actually have a
Okay.
really nice laser level at the office. That's part of the held up or the hold up. I have because I custom mounted custom sound panels with we did a bunch of cloudy movie poster designs, and so they were all custom done. And of course, to mount them, I used the laser level because they're going all
Of
across the entire
course.
room. Why wouldn't
And
I?
it's an excuse to use a laser. So what else do you
Yeah,
need?
exactly. So I did get, and of course, at that moment, I had to buy a new laser level because the old one was inadequate. It only did 2 axes. This one did three. So and it did multiple lines. So I had to get the right tool for the right job. So I do have it sitting in my office along with my angle grinder. So I have to go get it tomorrow
Jeez.
since I was out of the office all last week. But I should have by not next community live, but the one after that, I should have my kitchen backsplash done.
So after one more weekend, you think one
Yes.
more weekend, 4 more trips to Home Depot,
Yeah,
and
that's about
for
right.
some reason you're gonna end up buying like a new Sawzall.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's pretty accurate. I mean, I got water, I got whatchamacallit, the little plungers for the bathroom too. Swap those out, taking advantage. I'm gonna change some wax rings and the plungers while I'm at it. Uh but I guess no more home reno talk for now.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
No more football, no more home improvement. Let's
there you go. So this was a busy week here this week. I also kind of like that we're going to do these on Fridays because we can talk about the stuff as it's happening during that week. Um, not that we're that far off on Sundays, but there was one. Let's see, there was one I liked. Was it hardware sales commissions? Okay, well, first I did want to do this. I want to go over this thread because as mods, you and I both get these requests all the time. Can I post this promotional thing? And we do have vendors that watch this, so I've had vendors give me feedback on this. Um, the weekly promo thread gets a shit ton of views, dude.
yeah.
So
It's
don't
not
think
like
that
this
you're posting there
wasteland.
and nobody's looking at it. It's absolutely getting looked at. So I just wanted to put that out there, and MSPs, take a look. I mean, this is the place we told them to advertise. So, take a look, and it's still subject to the same rules. Anybody can downvote, upvote, do whatever they want, comment on. So do that. You know what I mean? And but go check it out. It's the MSP, it's the vendors that are working in our space,
That
in
is a
our
good point.
communities.
Yeah. People read this. It's not this barren black hole of content where no one looks at it. And it's the only thing we really can do because there's no fair way to let some in and anything else, right? They all just need to go to the promo thread, and that way there's no favoritism or anything else as far as what gets left up.
Oh yeah. And I kind of like it because it forces them to come back every week and repost. So it's not stagnant stuff. It's not somebody
Yeah.
that joined
Yeah.
Reddit for like a week and then disappeared. Nobody but admins have API access to our sub. So nobody can post using any tools or anything. Um so yeah, because it's
Oh,
a new thread
geez.
every week. What
Let's
was
not
that?
talk about Reddit and APIs. We'll just totally derail this thing.
Oh yeah. so So let's talk about this one. This work-life balance job hunting. Um, I like these because these are the ones that um, I've been a big proponent of candidates being their own support, right? Bolstering themselves up, understanding their worth. I don't care what kind of job market it is. You do have to interview your employer. You should have goals beyond
Hmm.
just I'm looking for the salary. So I love these kind of posts. How do you feel? I mean, you're a little more aged in your career. You have a little more experience. Are you in it now more for self satisfaction than you are for just the paycheck?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. In fact, I think I hope I was like that before too. You have to like what you're doing, and it's harder at the beginning, and you may do more hours. But if you have the goal in mind of doing something else, it's all about time. Like
Yeah.
we're and so we're both further along in careers now, but I would at this point take less money for more free time. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. It's funny because everything I build for the last 3 years has been to not need me, which is just good, owner executive
Hmm.
mentality anyway. But a lot of it is also I want to be able to do cool stuff like this. I want to be able to do, other important stuff.
Well,
So
it's so cliched, right? But that phrase on the business versus in the business
mhm,
is super
but it's
relevant, and
accurate.
it's cliche because it's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So let's see what this guy says. Or person says. Mysterious Logi Shot says, over the last 3 years, I've had the privilege of working at two VARs where I achieved substantial professional growth. During the time, I received 5 salary increases, 4 promotions, all obtaining 6 certifications, most notable being my NP. Enthusiasm for my work is undeniable, but I find myself at crossroads as the demands of my current position are beginning to impact my personal life negatively. Late nights, constant on call schedule. strain my relationships outside of work. None of that is surprising yet at all. This
Nope.
is,
I think we've all been there
yeah.
personally.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when you're younger, you get that like that drive that just you want to just rocket upward. You don't realize early enough that it's not sustainable, but you know, it always looks good when you have 5 salary increases, 4 promotions, 6
Yeah.
certifications
No, good for
um,
him. A lot of
in
people do
three
this without the
years.
salary increase.
Yeah, that's impressive. I'm deeply passionate about my job, struggling to identify alternate career opportunities that offer comparable compensation without the demands of VAR or MSP. Started my career at 45 with additional bonuses. Currently earn 150 plus bonuses in Central U.S. region. At 22 years old, Jesus, I am concerned about the long-term sustainability of my current workload, fearing that it may lead to burnout in the future. I'm now exploring options to achieve a better work-life balance, as my extensive hours are significantly I lost my place as
Yep.
my
No,
extensive
I see it.
hours. There you go. Significantly affecting my dating family life. Moreover, I face a unique challenge just by holding senior level role at my age. Many companies are hesitant to hire me for similar positions due to my relative youth. Any advice on how to transition to a more manageable 40-hour work week without compromising my professional integrity? Should I consider exploring alternative career paths?
What a great threat. First of all, good for this guy because
Yeah.
man, I've been there and my early MSP days destroyed my personal life.
Yeah.
Like it was really bad. Um, so fantastic for recognizing this and doing
100%.
the right thing and addressing this at 22. That's amazing. I sure waited a lot longer than that.
Yeah, 22, I was working 15-hour days, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and that was on an 8-hour schedule. We were working 15 because that's the max the police department would let me do overtime. Um, I wouldn't do it again, but it was nice paychecks for a good minute in my early 20s.
I'll
Uh,
tell you though, like I say stuff like I wouldn't do it again, but based on the way everything ended up, I might.
yeah, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for working, putting the work in, putting in extra. I completely get that, completely respect it. Um, the thing old guys like Matt and myself learn eventually is you have to have there has to be a pace. You can have ups and downs. You can go hardcore for a few months at a time or a year at a time and back off, but it's not sustainable. I mean, seeing this guy at 3 years get burnt out, that's not surprising to me at all. What's surprising
Yeah.
to me is that this person obviously has a good head on their shoulders and is looking at the right things very early in life. Seems to me like somebody with a good judgment. I will say from an employer standpoint, though, I'm a little concerned. 3 years, 2 roles. Let's split the difference. Say he was a year and a half in each role. 5 promotions, 2.5 promotions per at a year and a
It's a
half
lot.
each. That's a little excessive. $55,000 a year job, and he's making 150 with bonuses. He's definitely a go getter. I'm
It's
hoping most of that is
interesting because it's
commission and not. You go. The reason I say not, I hope most of that is not promotions because as employers, I've done that. I've promoted people way too early, and it actually had negative impacts on them over longer term. And it's something I look out for now. What about you?
it almost sounds like the career path of someone who came in with took a job he was overqualified for at the beginning and then normalized out. But it's weird hearing that with the age that's mentioned in the post, right? Nobody like okay,
Yeah.
you think you're senior at 22. I did, and then later on, like oh no, I wasn't at that age for sure.
Well, I have a friend that watches this show. He's in a senior role, a senior security role. Definitely on the younger side. Um, Brilliant person, and him and I have had this conversation. So I'm not saying anything he hasn't heard before. I don't want to out anybody. Um, but similar situation is very high earner for his age, definitely high earner for his experience. And while I know many others would love to pick him up, the experience and the age don't equate to the salary he'd be looking for. So it
Mm,
kind of like
mm.
put himself in a bad spot. And I wonder if that's not what happened here, right? Like this is somebody at 22 years old. You can't say experience. With all due respect, 3 years is not enough to earn senior level role any organization I'd ever run. Um, I don't care if you were making hardcore moves for those 3 years. If your entire career is 3 years, you just don't have the experience yet to
You
see
might have the
the
skills
dark
for it. You
corners.
don't have the wisdom that goes with it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not an ageist thing. It's just it's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing. You just have to have enough time doing this shit to see all the potential, because I've always said the maturity of a technician is at first you don't know shit and everything's wondrous and oh my gosh, then you learn a little bit of shit and then it's I know the answer to everything, and then you get old enough or experienced enough where you realize, yeah, it's usually the easy stuff, not the most complex thing I've ever learned in my life. And you get back to I don't know anything, I don't know everything, and I'm comfortable with that, but I'm willing to learn. um I don't think he's
You're
had that
describing
comment.
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And that's why, like, I don't think at 22, I mean, barring some amazing big events in his or her life, I can't see how that could have been that person could have had enough time to get all that.
No, I'm sure not. And to Ray's point, it absolutely no disrespect. This person likely does have very high technical skills, and it just takes time to learn the applications, right? It's that old story about like, you're paying $990 to know where to hit the thing with the wrench, right? Um,
Mhm. Yeah, and
it's
that's
all a wisdom thing.
and that's the challenge too. You want to reward passion, you want to reward drive, but you don't want to reward an untenable effort. You know what I mean? Because at that point, you're just supporting the person burning out. And I realized that is not something I paid attention to when I was younger in my executive career. But now I pay attention to that a lot more.
So let
The
me ask
hard,
you this: is
yeah.
this something that's even noticeable? Like, despite this is one of those things, kind of like how everyone tells you how awesome summer vacation is, and you don't believe them until they're gone. Um, is this the kind of thing that is almost impossible to identify for yourself until you actually have that moment of looking around and saying, "My personal life is a wasteland"? Like, can you even figure it out or
So
realize it beforehand?
self-realization, probably not. Which is why it's amazing to see this person thinking about these things this early in the game. Um, but that's why I say, like, the requirements for a boss or manager today, I think, are far harder, far greater than they ever used to be. At least for my level of success, for my metric of what a successful manager or boss
Mhm.
should be. Um, and that includes helping them build their career growth, helping them walk this path and understand, where it's going and what the potential outcomes are. Um, Somebody above him should above that person, I keep saying him, it could be whatever, somebody above that person should be telling them, hey, look, this is not tenable, you're going to want to start to have this life and you're not making space for it. And maybe for what it's worth, maybe somebody did have that conversation with them and that's what prompted all this.
Yeah, could
um
be.
you know uh, because I'm still kind of aghast at how well written that opening paragraph was, or that opening post was. Because I was definitely too much of a shithead at 22 to write anything like that, much less think
Yeah.
about it. um but I worry about over promoting people into a spot where they can't do anything with it, right? Because if the person's goal is to be there for 20 years, and well, what are you going to do if you've made them senior after 3? If the person's goal is to build X career and go move somewhere else, who's going to take a 20-year-old C-suite? It's not going to happen.
No.
So, at some point you're not helping things either.
So what does
um,
that conversation look like with that person, right? So say I come up to you, Ray, and say, "Look, I feel that I'm ready to be promoted. I'd like to move up in the organization." And how do you explain to that person without losing them that you're not ready, or explaining, like explaining the need for the
yeah,
wisdom and
I get what you're
experience?
saying. So my thing is this. Yeah, whatchamacallit, my thing is this. The way I would say it is all about setting expectations, right? No different than we've had this exact conversation about talking to your clients and setting the
Mhm.
expectation for what security will look like, what deployments look like, blah blah blah. We go through this, not even an interview, we go through this on the job posting, where we you will be a position, these are the things we're looking for, but we tell them there's no promotions for the first 2 years. You got to be in your position for 2 years because you're there. You need 24 months to at least suck everything in to be able to understand and digest everything that's happening in that role. Under 2 years, there's no way. um, and it also gives them, it also stops the super aggressive, because I can imagine how this kind of personality is. I've managed those where they're very much a go-getter, they want to keep getting promoted. Well, it stops the conversation of, am I going to get a promotion for that first 24 months? The answer is no. Right. And but I'll help you build to that promotion over the
Mhm.
24 months. It also gives us something to work on. And I can say very early on, your next step is this. If you're tier one, your next step is tier two. And a tier two, this is the job posting. This is what I'm expecting of them. So these are the things we're going to build yourself up into over this 24 months, um, including what I'm looking for in your role. I do that also with new hires as part of their very first day. Every single new hire is we do a CEO expectations meeting for 30 minutes. And I tell them at a high level, this is what I gauge. These are the characteristics I see that lead to success in our organization. Um, and it works really well. It's setting those expectations. Um, how would you approach it if you get that job, that job applicant? You see the job applicant, you see 3 years, two roles, five promotions, or five salary increases, four promotions, and they're coming to you for a senior level, I'm imagining technical role, if it's bonus based. Um, what's your takeaway when you see something like that?
Man, I got to be honest. I'm looking at the resume and not buying it. And
Yeah.
I it would pique my interest enough probably to interview this person, and I hope that I would be able to draw out whether there's the experience attached to this or not.
Yeah.
But I fully admit I would be going into this with some serious skepticism and thinking like, oh man, he's one of those like, you know, C-level people who don't even like manage a department of one, or like
Right.
directors with no managers under him, or that kind of role.
That's why you refer to a janitor as janitorial manager, even though they have no employees underneath them. It's just the title. It's
The
yeah,
the C one I even get. The one that really bugs me is like director with no direct reports.
right.
Right? Directors
That's
manage managers, like, and
yeah, I've managed a team of me. My one employee was very difficult. I was a pain in the ass, and yeah, no, I completely get it. Um, which is why I say, like, I'm not a. I don't think titles mean everything, but there's certain components to certain titles. Understand the gravitas it has when you assign them, because you have every other. Oh, I was trying to figure out if it was cat or rain. Um, that's Guinness. Whatchamacallit. But you want to also do it in a way that if they have it on a resume, anybody else that talks to them is going to be on the same playing field, right?
Yeah. Right. I don't mean to discount titles completely. And especially if it's someone for whom reaching a specific title is a career goal, that's not to say that it's not a worthwhile thing to do, or to see that as a goal. It's simply the reality within our own industry that there's so many of those, um, director of none, or like kind of these ghost C-suite
Yeah.
execs that they just don't mean anything to an interviewer. They do carry lots of external cachet, and one of the stupidest things of having a C-level title is that it made my emails to clients a lot easier. Like
It
it's so
does.
dumb,
It does.
but there's value in stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, not for nothing, but you go to events that we go to, and like you start networking with others, with your peers, and how much are you going to have in common with your peer directors if you have no employees? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because employee management's a pain in the ass. I will tell you, like, anybody that manages employees, oof, yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Um, yeah, and the person I'm talking about also, they know they're in a position where, like, it sucks. You're gonna have to give up something if you move. Alden says, "Awesome thinking point, experience, and title don't necessarily align, especially if a company is giving fluff titles out."
Fluff title. That's a great way to say it. That's better than the two paragraphs I said.
Yeah. Right? Either of us. Thank you, Alden, for being I don't know. I'm struggling with words today. Um, so let's see some of these responses. Few ways of looking at this. You work hard and grind for 10 years. I did think that way when I first started.
Hmm.
Building a nest egg, buy yourself a house, pay it off, put everything into your career. It's much easier to do this in your 20s and 30s. It gets harder as you get older. You start setting boundaries with work, turn off the phone when you're not on call, disable email alerts, don't pick up other people's slack. That's about 50-50 how I feel. Make sure both speak to your boss, say how you feel you're hitting burnout. You love the job, but you need time to switch off. If you're performing how you say they are, they will understand and be happy to let you bend their rules. I kind of like number three.
Number three is the way to go. And I
Yeah.
have an issue with number two, and maybe this isn't a good way to be, but I am one of those guys, and I think many of us are, that will not let a client issue drop. Like, yeah, technically it's not my job or my issue or whatever, but none of that really matters to the person having the problem on the other side. So my attitude has always been, yeah, I'll deal with the internal issue of I shouldn't be doing this later.
Hmm.
And I don't really like the idea of turning off my phone when I'm not on call. Somebody might need something that only I know how to fix. What am I going to do? Just sit there and stare at my phone ringing? Like I never
I
was big on that.
so and again, a lot of my experience here comes from the management side of things. I do everything in my power to make sure the employees don't have to have their phone on. Um, granted, being a VoIP service provider, a little different than MSP. But you better believe we get shit in the middle of the night of people calling everything super important, blah, blah. Um, my thing is, well, if you're senior, kind of suck it up. It comes with the title, it comes with the pay. You kind of got to be on a little more often than, but the hell if I expect my like tier one, tier two, I don't want to call them, I don't mean to
Yeah.
be condescending, but the average staff, right? Non-management, non-director, if you're getting six figures plus and your salary and you got a lot of other benefits that come along with it, yeah, sometimes staying till 5:30, 6 o'clock, or doing a little bit of work on a Saturday, that just comes with the job. It sucks. It is what it is, but that's why you make the medium bucks, so to speak. Um, and I'm never a fan of that's not my job. That's the needles on my skin.
Yeah.
Um, but I do believe in work-life balance. I do believe that accountability, if someone should be on call, they're accountable to being on call. It's their manager's job to make sure they do their job.
So
but like
yes, I saw that though as the trade-off for not being in the on-call rotation is that if an engineer is calling my phone in the middle of the night, that means they are stuck on something.
oh yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like as a manager, as a boss, yeah, if they're calling me in the middle of the night, I tell people all the time, I founded the business. I signed up for this. That's on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't get to say my phone is off. Um, I do get a lot of other benefits for it, but I don't get to say my phone is off. That will never happen. Um, but I don't expect all the employees to be like that. Now they help each other out. Absolutely, yes, 100%. Um, let's see how. Okay, so our OP responded. Says I have an automated Android work profile. Automatically disables my notifications after hours. Doesn't stop me from working till 8 or 9 most nights. Due to unrealistic expectations, the outrageous customer when I push back. With my current investment strategy, I should be able to retire around 30. Jesus, which is unlikely as my entire family is a bunch of workaholics. I think taking an extended vacation would be a great way to reset boundaries once I return. So, if you're a high performer and you're an all-star, I do believe that if you're a high performer and you're compressing all your wins into a very small amount of time, because that's what this person obviously is doing to earn such a high wage, um, I believe you should be comfortable taking time off too. We should build around that,
You
right? I
have to.
mean, if you got some guy hitting sluggers, hitting home runs every single time he's at bat, that dude wants something extra to make him a little happy. I'm going to make it happen. You know what I mean? Like that's reasonable. Yeah, take a vacation. I was just talking to my wife about, possibly doing a month or two in Bali next summer. Like just live there.
Yeah.
Um, why
So
not?
I see something in the first paragraph of his response, and that is that unrealistic expectations that I think that's supposed to be outrages the customer when I push back.
Okay.
And what I'm hearing and seeing from reading this is someone who's a very high technical capability and probably is able to, architect and design and troubleshoot the hardest thing in this network, but he's not necessarily an account management, project manager, customer service type person, and maybe
Right.
even lacks those skills.
Yeah.
And what I would be looking for and the conversation I would have is try and get some support on that side of the business, right? There's been very few, a couple of people I've ever met who can be both the lead technical person of an account and that account's account manager.
Yeah.
I did it by necessity when we only had like 3 engineers, and things got a lot better once we got real account managers. And I think this is kind of the same deal. Um, I suspect that this person needs to work on setting expectations with clients as far as what's possible and learn to say no to and right, not just I always have trouble saying that as advice to like learn to say no to clients. Is you don't just outright say no, but you explain what's possible when you do that. And
Yeah. No,
working
I'm with
on
you.
that side of the service skill, I think would be a big help for this person.
Well, and I've seen also where people put themselves in that position. You know what I mean? Where nobody's really we've had that. I've had it internally in my org, and I've had to sit people down and be like, nobody's setting this expectation on you except you. I
Yeah.
appreciate the drive. I appreciate the go-getter attitude, but my company's designed around when it's your go home time, it's your go home time, period. Um, you know what I mean? It's not a leave it outstanding. We have built in, inform your manager. This is going to take long. Let them decide what they want to do. But it's never the whole, well, I just work on my own till 9 o'clock at night. That's not going to win any arguments with me because when you get burned out, I'm going to be like, remember that time I told you not to do this thing? You did
Right.
it. And that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
The 9 p.m. is something's on fire and you're
yes,
dealing
every
with
once in
the
a while. Yeah,
emergency.
of course. But if you're doing it every single night, most nights, yeah. I mean, this person that responded,
So
want
it's
to have
such an
kids in the
interesting thing
future?
though.
LOL. I
Like
agree.
it goes back to what we were saying before because you and I like, man, I did this for so long. I missed so many social events and like stayed at the office till 8, 9 o'clock and made friends with the cleaning people and like all that stuff. Um, and no matter how many times anyone told me about it, then you just don't realize it till after the fact what a number it's doing on you.
Yeah. I and Alden says maybe it's the MSP not managing their employee correctly. And that goes back to what I was saying. Like
Yeah.
you can't have an employee working till 9 o'clock if the manager doesn't know. That's a whole other bag of problems. And if the manager does know and they're letting it happen, they're just taking advantage of it. Equally a problem. And maybe they're just letting him because he's senior, whatever he is in his organization. Um, I don't know that senior part just kind of throws me off. Um, all right, so very curious what else. But let's move on to the next one. Keeping track of all billable hours. Yay. Um, He's struggling to formulate his question in a coherent way. English is not his first language, but I love his username. Poop dis, poop dat, poop you. So, and my inner 12-year-old says, thank
It's
you.
noteworthy for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, says, how do you all track time? Like me and our colleagues travel to customers for on site bill regularly while in the car. We take calls. Don't take calls in the car and support other customers while we're waiting for someone to load, install, stuff like that. So we're going to the multitasking or context switching to solve a ticket. A lot of this is billable, of course, but what we and I trust a lot of you struggle with is logging the time in an efficient manner. Like on a computer, we can use stuff like Toggle, but the most important time wasters are phone calls. Been trying to find an app that can log calls and duration. It seems like there's no fix to track all solution. See, I have a very easy answer to this. It's not going to be helpful in the least bit. So I'm curious as to what you say first.
So I used I used a time tracking app on my phone if I had to do something while I was outside of the office, and it was like I must have tried 100 of them,
Mhm.
and it was simply like hit start, stop, and put like a 2-sentence notes. You could fill in the real time entry later, and that was it. Like, that's all I did. Now, there's all sorts of intricacies around, like, how do you bill, and like, is it 15-minute increments, and how do you deal with, like, do you double bill while that's going on, and all that, and that just depends on your specific organization and how the agreements work. Um, I Yes, I did take calls on the road all the time. Tried not to do it if I was actually at a client's site in their office, because that seemed kind of rude, unless I was like staring at a progress bar or something. Um, but I just used an app that was very clear and clean, just start, stop, note, and dealt with the timesheet later. That's my answer.
So my thing is, yay Dolphins, we won. My thing is, whatchamacallit, this comes from context switching. This comes from not making time to do one thing at a time. And I know, see, I have this argument with, whether it's an argument, discussion, or whatever else. I
Mhm.
have this with every single person that's experienced that joins my organization, because I will tell you 90% of our processes sound counterintuitive to the ultimate goal of customer experience. As a program, as a whole, I guarantee you they're super freaking efficient and towards the goals of customer experience. But to the average person, we have the argument back and forth. This is the same thing. I can do 5 things at a time. Well, we've had that conversation. You can't do 5 things at a time. You may context switch better, but if you're complaining about losing stuff, you need that. In a call center, you have the concept of wrap up time. You have your call is done, and then the typical phone systems won't allow another call in for configurable a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, to give you
Mhm.
wrap up time to type everything in, do everything you need to do to notate, prepare for the next call. That is standard operating procedure for call centers, 911 centers included. Um, so if they can do that, why can't MSPs? You know what I mean? If I have somebody, yes, I was at the point in my life where I was absolutely taking calls while I was driving to one client, doing all that. I put a stop to it pretty damn early, and I hired my first employee 6 months into my MSP. Uh,
That's a really good point. Um,
Staff management, right? Resource allocation.
yes. So I think I was in the same boat, because I was such an early employee in this organization that like half of Rochester had my cell phone number by the time I was done.
And that's
And
horrible to split out from. Like when everybody knows your
right?
cell phone number and you're like, call the office. And they're like, no, I have your cell phone number.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's my point. So like the later clients, and as we got more mature as an organization, we really spent a lot of effort to stop calling text directly, like at all. And that made this somewhat of a moot point. Like, our guys on the road were just there to like install a PC and had no strong relationship with the client. And it was the account managers and the lead tech who didn't leave the office who had the strong relationship.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the thing, right? Like, but take that exact point. I guarantee you there was at some point where you're like, you had the internal battle because you are customer first of, is making them call the office a better customer experience for them than calling my cell? And eventually you realize it is a better customer experience because you will have somebody available in the office that can help them versus being beholden to your schedule, right?
yes.
But it's one of those counterintuitive things that doesn't make sense until you actually look at the bigger picture. Um, and I've had that. My own TSM. We've had the conversation because he came from a traditional MSP, and he came with my technical services manager. Sorry, and he came over, and I had to explain to him, like, we do things this way because the outcome is better. Than he was doing the traditional cherry pick tickets because he thought, somebody had called more times, so they were more urgent or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but what about everybody else that was already holding? How are you screwing them? You know what I mean? Are we just doing the creaky wheel gets the grease, or are we, being, you know,
Yeah, you don't want to
equal?
train your clients to think that calling cuts the line, right? As opposed to
Right.
emailing.
And that's the challenge. I would like to ask you. So we have two cases here where um, we have two cases with management problems, in my opinion. The first post that we read and this one, they both scream management concerns.
Mhm.
Um, to me anyway. Um, when I had this conversation with my TSM, when we had a high ticket load, to give you an idea, we usually average 400 tickets a month. We were averaging like 900 tickets a month for some busy periods. Um, and so the TSM's only response when customers called in, where the only possible answer was to work on their ticket if they called and they were upset. Um, I'm curious how you would handle. You have a high ticket load, you have customers waiting, you have a customer pissed off because the ticket's taking so long. How do you handle that?
You, you can't set the precedent that calling and complaining cuts the line. You just can't. The answer has to be, we'll have someone call you back. And man, it's tough, especially like if
Yeah,
they called me, it was really tough because I'd want to dive in and start working on
of
it myself,
course.
which would
Yeah,
screw everything up,
that's
right?
my
Like
first
I
instinct
have
too.
nothing to
Yeah,
do with this client. Let the guys who should be handling this handle it.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
stick to it.
That's my thing too. That's exactly how I feel about it. You know, my thing is I've always loved that I've had a gift where I could literally tell somebody "fuck you" and they'd say "thank you" at the end of the conversation. It's all about delivery. It's all about how you handle the conversation. Um, so my point of that is not being braggadocious. My point is you can have almost any conversation with anybody and have a positive outcome if you do it properly.
Mhm.
So to dovetail that back to the original question, it's very easy. How many people have you heard? Well, they keep calling my cell, so to teach them, I'm not going to answer my cell, or I'll take a long time to respond back to them because they're not going through the ticket queue. I've heard that ridiculous response a million times, way too much. But you can take the same principles and apply it here. You're giving a behavior, I'm giving a response, and I'm teaching you what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Customer calls, they're frustrated. It's their third call. Make it a productive call. I have your call. We have it marked as this. I understand you're waiting. We're going to get to it as quickly as possible. Do you have any additional information that you need me to add here? Because while I
Mhm.
have you on the phone, if something new has come up, let me know so I can add it. So they know we're going to expect something of them every time they call. It's not going to change the needle every time they call, but we are expressing that it's important to us every time they call. So the only outcome they're going to get from calling is us asking what additional information do they have. That's it.
Yes.
Um, you know what I mean? It's not a "you idiot, the more times you call, we're not going to help you." It's just let's make sure we have all the information we could possibly get so that the techs can work on it as quickly as possible the minute they start working the ticket. And you're putting in their benefit, you know. Not saying it works all the time. I'm saying it works sometimes, which I'll
It
take.
does, man. That intentional slow working thing just pisses me off so
Oh,
much,
me
right?
too.
Like it's a person. Like wait until the crisis is over and then tell them why you want them to call the
Oh
office,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
like this passive aggressive sending a message that way is just the least productive thing you could possibly. You would be better off like just ignoring them completely than doing that.
Yeah. No, so I'll get, especially because, as we were smaller, everybody and their mother knows me from the original days. And so I'll get people that'll ping me directly over and over, and I'll tell them, look, I will absolutely make sure the technical service manager knows what's up. I can look into it to make sure it's being handled properly. I'll get the appropriate managers to look into it. If you want to have a discussion of process, I'm here. We'll have that call. But the ticket's going to be worked through the support team. Like,
It has to be.
it has to be. I will absolutely look to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. If we possibly missing some information so we can get to it faster, or to make sure we're not mishandling it, I want to catch it as quickly as possible. But by the same tone, if I look at it and it's fine, that's what's going to be. And if I look at it and there's something to be corrected, I'm going to address it with the manager. I'm not going to handle it myself. Um,
That's the worst thing you can do. Like there might be a project going on, or if you're like me, you're gonna forget to put the ticket in later and not get the revenue for it.
oh
Like,
my God, yes.
right?
My
Especially
schedule
because
is so busy. You don't want me working your ticket.
yeah.
Like,
Well, and as you get further, you find you're not making tickets all that often, right? So it's
yeah,
a really you don't track your time, and it's so easy to get dropped, and all of a sudden, like you didn't realize that the service team is intentionally doing something that you just messed up by fixing, and like just
yeah.
resist the temptation.
Oh, it is. And I will say when I do, because I'll still work tickets every once in a while. Like if it's quiet on the weekend and I'm doing like a server upgrade or I'm doing something and I'm just sitting doing nothing, and it's not a football day, which means I'll do
Yeah.
less tickets now that football season's back. Um,
Yeah, no
But if
drunk
I'm doing it,
adminning.
yeah, I do follow the docs though on how to work the ticket, because that lets me see. Okay, well, I don't do it anymore, so I'm almost an end user when it comes to this. If it
Right.
doesn't make sense to me, there's something that needs to be fixed. Sandy says we tell clients call in everything in emergency. We're happy to raise rates to staff properly to handle the requests as such. Oof. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. I get it's frustrating. It is absolutely frustrating. Or we'll create work ticket, but may not be up to the company standards as we don't always work ticket. Yeah. So Steven's one of my core service engineers. He's in charge of platforms. He's not a support guy. He's not
Yeah.
freaking brilliant. I mean, he literally runs our architecture, but he's not a support guy. So I guarantee you he's going to screw up something that is not he's not going to follow our support processes properly.
Yeah.
Well,
No, of course.
he will. He'll follow the docs, right, Steven? Right? So,
Well,
um,
we all fall into that trap. Like, oh, it's
oh yeah,
just 10-minute thing. I'm not reading the docs.
and I'll be honest. So we did start doing quick fix tickets this week. We started. I know that's an old C level thing, and I think even the ConnectWise docs talk about it too. Pre buying HTG and all that.
Yeah.
But which I'm called the quick fix queue. So now that we're bringing on a second technical dispatcher, so the goal is we're going to have two technical dispatchers. Yeah, there's Steven. Yeah, sure, he's following the docs. So
We all do
um,
it or
the
not do it.
goal is that my technical dispatchers they can solve the quick tickets, so they can bang those out, and those will get done faster, and they're not tying up a tier one resource.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. We
now
call them the
Danny's in.
ticket
He's another
snipers.
Dolphins fan. Go Dolphins.
Oh, you guys are killing me.
And he moved to Tampa. It's not even like Danny's now in Tampa. So, yeah,
I'm a Jets fan. If any of the audience didn't know that.
yeah, and we're still gonna let you be on anyway. It's okay. It's not like if the Dolphins were serious like postseason contenders every single year, and there was like a hardcore rivalry. Yeah, I'd be more upset that we'd make more out of this Dolphins versus Jets thing, but let's be real honest. We're gonna have a great half season, then we're gonna fall off the map, and we may go postseason one or two games. But get the fuck out, Sandy. Get the fuck out. All right, that's something we can all agree with. Get the fuck out.
Well, they lost, so that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies for being a Jets fan. Our niece is actually a hardcore Jets fan too, so
Nice.
there's no end
Nice.
to that fun. All right, so let's,
So I think
that-
our underlying point with this thread is like, yes, there are ways to do this, but if you're getting these interruptions, address the root cause of that first. It's a sign of an underlying issue.
let's see. Nope, we don't have an issue tracking time because we have a ticketing system when a user submits a ticket via email. So okay,
And that's a little reductionist.
it is, but at the same time, it's reductionist to the exact point I was bringing up, though.
Yeah.
Of do it one at a time, resource problem. Yes, if it's not in a ticket, it never happened. You're at the home of that phrase. Lord knows we used to beat it into our staff when we were ConnectWise shop.
Which is a little bit of a misnomer because what it really means is you don't get paid for it.
It is, but we don't say that part out loud. We don't. No ticket, no work. How does this help if you're switching to work another ticket?
Yeah.
Then you stop one ticket and you work the other ticket. Because I've yet to see in my entire career, I've yet to see a tech that could work two tickets at once, document both properly, and the time be accurate for both at the same time. 'Cause I call
Including
bullshit.
us, right? Like I think I can, but really the only
Yeah.
time it works is if literally like something is downloading and I can do something else for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's full of it. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Not even the pay portion. You can't reference something that wasn't logged. I don't disagree. That's exactly why we do two-step close. Did you guys do two-step close at your MSP?
So yes, we did, and then eventually stopped when one tech seemed to learn how to write better. And two is that was the bigger problem, but two, our agreements were almost all at that point all you can eat, so it didn't really impact from a billing perspective. It was
Yeah,
really just a checking for quality, and so we
yeah.
did sampling after that.
That's exactly what we do. We do two-step close, completed, then close, text market completed. For those that are not familiar with it, two-step close is the text will mark something completed or some version. It's not actually closed. You're getting a second person to review the ticket before actually closing it, or whatever. I know some people that do it automated based on looking for certain things. Um, we do the same thing. We automatically close after X number of days, but the goal is we have that gives 24 hours for the technical service manager to sample first and mark some
Yeah.
closed. This way, he doesn't have to review everything, but he has time to review some for that week before they close out. And it's been a nice happy medium, and it's all QC is what it is
Yeah.
for us. It's not a billing thing.
You
Uh,
eventually have to. When we were doing, review every ticket, we eventually had, a someone who was a manager basically spending his entire day
right,
reviewing tickets, and it's just not
hard,
sustainable.
yeah, but you don't want to miss stuff either. So it's like it's a catch 22, and like everything else, there's balance, right? Um,
Yes.
So, all right, this is one I wanted to bring up. I love me some business ones. If you have any you want to bring up, just put
No,
it in the
these are
channel.
good, right? We talk about tech all the time. I like that we talk
Yeah,
about things that aren't just ones and zeros.
yeah, I'm with you. So this is title difference from interview to offer. I recently been interviewing for a network admin role at an MSP. I got offered the position when they sent me the official offer. Title is technical service engineer. I questioned it. They claimed all engineers go by that title, but it translates to network admin outside the company. Is this a red flag? Um, So before we go into what your actual thoughts are, I want to pull a Kyle here. How do you think Reddit responded to this? Because I have a pretty good idea of how I think they'd
I
respond.
think this might be one that Reddit and I disagree on. Um,
Yeah, I
I bet Reddit said big time red flag.
yeah, um, and that's some of it. Actually, you'd be surprised. I'm very actually surprised too. Um, so what is your opinion? What is your takeaway? You get a job offer, you applied for something, you get a job offer, title's different.
So that is different does send up some red flags, especially if it was like advertised with a title and then the job offer had a different one. That I wouldn't feel very good about just from the personal relationship deceitful thing. The actual title, network administrator, engineer, like they're all the same, honestly. Like if I see a
Yeah.
resume, network engineer versus network admin, you don't even really register it as being different.
It's so my thing here is the problem is now where job titles have become just as much marketing as anything else in the organization. How common is it to have a director of people instead of a director of HR? We have
Yeah.
one. We have a director of people. You want to go on Indeed and put a job posting for director of people? Our good friend Marnie Stockman, one of her last hires before they sold LCI, was a get shit done person. She was looking for basically an admin assistant, but she was calling it get shit done because the truth of the matter is, in a small business, you're wearing a
Hmm.
lot of hats, you're doing a lot of things. But you put a job posting out for a get shit done specialist, who's searching for that? Right? You're searching for tech, you're searching for security, you're searching. So I completely understand the title that goes on the job posting is to attract the talent looking for that job title. No different than lifecycle insights trying to cater to people looking for VCIO or QBRs.
Hmm.
They hated those terms, but that's what people search for. Um, versus the internal, like us, we're very boring. Technician one, technician two, technician three, but we also have our core services engineering, which is
Hmm.
basically internal, right? Our internal support, internal engineers. That's the core services team. It's a separate team from our client-facing tech support. Um, but I can't put a job posting out for CSE engineer, CSE tech. That's me and Microsoft. I think there's like larger orgs use those titles, but it's not as common in SMB. So you look for a network engineer, you look for a platform architect, you look for
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
That's fine. It is something I probably would have disclosed on the second or third interview.
Yes, right. I'm
Um,
going to pull a Matt Lee and do the nose thing. Yes,
yeah,
that's the difference, right? So lots of orgs and lots of positions, especially big organizations, right, have these ridiculous sounding internal titles that you wouldn't put them on your business card, you wouldn't put them on LinkedIn or anything because they mean nothing.
Well,
Uh,
your title is a little your what is your official
yeah,
title?
so my official real title, like as far as HR goes, is something like um, associate evangelism director, which if you know what that means, somebody
Which
please let
no,
me
of course
know.
not.
Um, right. So like I always like so if I'm doing presentations and stuff, I just say like security evangelist.
Right,
Um,
exactly. And that's kind of the thing, which is what you actually do, which, it makes more sense to most people. Steven, you're 100% right. That is the top comment. Are they
yeah.
paying you appropriately? Who cares? Some days I take out the trash. I'm 100%.
I would want it
Um,
to be disclosed in the interview though. Like I
yeah,
wouldn't feel good if I found out about this after I accepted the offer and like got there.
yeah. It's so my 2 cents, it sounds like they thought it was an internal role, found a client facing. That absolutely could have happened. Um, This is an interesting take. Sandy says he believes they're pushing to remove the word engineer from IT computer careers, as the belief is they're not real engineers. Well, somebody with an engineering degree.
So there are I don't know if nobody's ever been able to actually show me the statute, but this is apparently because there are some uh, states where you cannot use the title engineer unless you have like civil engineering or went to engineering school, like that kind of engineer. I The common argument is that Texas is one of them, but I've never actually seen the law that requires it. But that's where this is coming from.
So I actually heard this. So Charles Barkley has this whole speech on there's only 5 real jobs in the world, which is not what I was looking for, but that's what keeps coming up. Um, However, I heard this exact argument before, and you're not going to believe how ridiculously old this is. Um, it was some Greek philosopher, God knows who, something. Let's call it something ending in Edes or one of those, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Um, let's call him ridiculous. Why not? I can't find the article, but so the gist is this: um, ancient Greece, the saying goes, there was only X amount of real professions in the world, true professionals in the world. Professionals being doctor, engineer, not lawyer back then, but whatever the freaking counselor, whatever it was.
Mhm.
But you get the gist, right? And translated to today's terms, people that have a professional degree and professional licensing at a state level or federal level. Um, Challenge with that is you can have a low voltage license. That doesn't change shit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the definition of engineer has nothing to do with college degree. It's one who works on things to make it work. Um, I purposely don't call my technicians engineers only because as somebody who has legitimate experience and training as an engineer, as a network engineer, um, I don't want to I don't want to. I don't want to say defile. I don't want to undermine the gravity of the title by assigning it to somebody junior in their career. I think it's something to build up to. I'm not saying you need to have a college degree to get it. I'm not saying you have to have state licensure to get it. I'm saying if you're working tier one help desk, you're not an engineer. That's real.
Fair. Fair.
Um, you're a support technician, and I look at it as sort of like the apprenticeship hierarchy. Now that is 100% subjective. That is how I treat my org. It is not judgment on anybody else. It's just that's how we do it. But I think at the end of the day, all that really matters though is your org understands you and you understand what the expectations are. Um, Really annoys me. I can't find the actual old Greek bullshit, but
I do want to see it now. I'm gonna go look it up.
yeah. Um, I'll find it because, of course, it was architect engineer. Because of course it was my nephew that's an architect that was saying this. Right after he graduated.
So
Um,
that's a good point though. So I know there are like solutions architect type positions out there, and the thing with man, I'm gonna regret saying this.
See, all I
In
can see now is Articules. I know that's not what
right,
Sandy meant, but I'm going to go with
I don't care.
Articules.
So in many or most or basically every MSP that I've been involved in or talked to, we are not doing things that would rise to the level of actual technical architects.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. Like in my at the MSP I worked out until the last year or two when we got big, we weren't doing things that I would consider real technical architecture projects. We were designing networks for like, 200 users at most. And it felt weird seeing titles like solutions architect or systems architect or network architect because
Yeah.
what's there to architect? There's like 5 VLANs.
Well, okay. I get you. I get you. And remember, I built
I
a
said
lot
it
of
was
major stuff.
controversial.
No, I'm with you. So, dictionary Oxford, a person who designs, builds, or maintains engines, machines, or public works. I think we can all agree that networks are machines. Computers are machines. To me, it falls down to, and also as a CCIE, engineer and architect have very significant, and designer have very significant meanings, right? No different than breach, right? How many times you've heard the word breach where it doesn't apply to what actually happened?
Yep.
It was a fucking incident, or it was a leak, or it was something else. It wasn't a breach. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Semantics. But to me, an engineer has to be designing things. I understand if affecting a 5 VLAN network is not the most complicated thing in the world. If they're responsible for the ultimate design and effect of it, I'd probably let that pass. Um, because somebody has to look at it and say 5 VLANs is appropriate for this customer, right?
Mhm.
We're not just talking about the affecting, I'm talking the design portion of it. If you're just the doer, where this is off the table in my opinion. Now, if you can tell me you designed it and you understand the whys of it and what requirements had the impact to get to this final result, you and I are on the same page. That's an engineer. I'm not going to argue that one. But not the tier one who's just following the or whatever technician is just following the instructions, getting it done. That is
Yeah.
not the same thing. Um, in my
Yeah, I'd agree
I
with
guess
that.
I'm just the bougie network engineer now.
No, so I totally agree with that. But to me, and I threw us off track by bringing up architect, but to me, like the architect term and even some of the higher level engineer terms to me mean designing like a campus infrastructure
Yeah.
or right, like, and I would go into some of these little environments and think like, man, I'm really pushing it, calling myself a designer here.
You know why I don't hinge on that. I get where you're coming from 100%. You know why I don't though? You look at college campuses and say, okay, that's a big network. My background is in building multi-continent networks. You get what
Yeah,
I'm saying? There's always a bigger, and there's guys that are, there's one guy I've been chasing for years. He's freaking has 7 CCIEs. It's freaking mind boggling. The guy is mental, but he has 7 CCIEs and he's still
I
going.
actually know who that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a big group, right? Um, but whatchamacallit, but that's my point. Like, there's always somebody who's done something more bigger, and to them, normal is not your normal, right?
Yeah,
Um, and so, like, I don't, and that kind of feels like gatekeeping a little to me. I'm not saying you're big dog anybody. I'm just saying to me that kind of feels that way, and that's why, like,
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't do that. You know what I mean? It's not uh, unless you've built a network. Now, to be fair, CC and CCENT and CCNA are all single network design. CCNP is when you get into multi-network design, and then you go up from there. So Cisco maybe agrees with you. I mean, if you're
Maybe that's where it came
right,
from. Cisco was the first cert path I went through.
there you go. Yeah, same. No, that's not true. I got my MCSE before I did my Cisco paths. Um,
Minesweeper consultant.
yeah, no, mine's engineer. I'm 2003, so the when what MCSE when MCSE was engineer, and then nothing, and then came back as expert. And I don't know if there's an MCSE today. They keep fucking with that title.
They had the certified master thing for a while. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's still around.
I went. I don't know. That's why I gave up on my MCSE after 2003. I'm like, I know my shit. It's not like GPO is changing all that much.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know,
You
so
do raise a good point though, in that um, the scale is smaller, the scope is smaller, but the nuances are different. And in fact, somebody who's used to designing multi-continent networks may struggle on the intricacies of like a single
100%.
site, right? It's totally different because to them, they work for Acme Corp. And what do you mean you can't spend like $2
Well,
million on this one site?
we're working on a project now. I can't get too deep dive into it, but we're working with a guy that there's not a lot of people when it comes to networking that I can look at and be like, I'm going to shut up when they talk because they're that fucking smart. Um, I'm thankful that a lot of my friends fall in that category of I just shut the fuck up when they talk. Slagle's one of them. Like I just shut the fuck up when they talk. But this guy he's not in the MSP space. Nobody here would know him, but he's fucking brilliant. The dude eats, breathes, sleeps BGP. He loves building giant networks. So he's consulting on some projects with us. And it's funny because as we're working on stuff, as he's talking, because of what he's built and what we're trying to do, and to be fair, we're doing global expansion. We're trying not to do small things, but he's still over engineering for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of my role has actually been, okay, I understand you technically, you're right. If we were doing this, if we were building INAP, if we were building Equinix, absolutely fucking makes sense. We're not building that. That's not the scale we're going for. And so a lot of my thing, which is funny as an engineer and an executive, is I'm having to walk things back from a business perspective and be
Yeah.
like, yeah, technically accurate 100%, unsustainable if we did it. Because him and myself would be the only people capable of maintaining it. And we've had that conversation. Um, of not building stuff that we're the only ones capable of maintaining. So and you're right. And it's because he's used to building really big shit. And so when it gets to a little bit smaller, he's like, well, why don't we put this $200,000 big iron switch? So why don't we do 6 of them so we can like,
Right.
no, 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 we're not doing that. So yeah, those are always fun. And that's what I go back to. When you're a tech, everything, the world is wide open, your eyes are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then you learn something, and then everything is that new thing you just learned, whether it's a firmware update or this one GPO policy. And then when you get more experience, you realize, yeah, it's 90% of it's just the simple shit. You don't need to get that complex.
Right. Right. Realizing what to say no to.
What to say no to, and that's when the business side comes in. um yeah, and I think that's probably a good spot to hit us out. um we only did two. I think we only did two today, or maybe two and a half, three. But they were good
It's okay
topics.
though. Those were good discussion
Yeah,
starters.
I mean, and the Dolphins won, so yay. Since you're
You'll
not
find out
playing
about
us,
my team tomorrow.
yeah, since you're not playing us, I will wish you good luck with the Jets tomorrow. um until we play each other, then we may have to get different hosts for that week, or maybe bring in Kyle to like to mediate.
Moderate, yeah.
What do you got coming up this week?
Not too much actually. Very quiet. I shouldn't say quiet week. Without giving anything away, there's a lot going on with that stuff John and Brad are talking about this week, which
Okay.
doesn't seem like it should take up a lot of time, but somehow is.
That's the way it always goes. Yeah, we got that nice little lull until ITNC comes. So it's like there's a bunch of conferences, don't get me wrong. Dean and Alex were at, or Dean was at a Channel Pro in Boston last week. I think we have Atlanta in a couple of weeks. I know Build It's next week in Orlando. TechCon Unplugged just finished, which I really wish I could have gone to. My personal next one besides Build It, I may show up at DattoCon as MMN, not as OIT. And then I will absolutely be there as OIT and MMN at ITNC because I never miss that show, assuming I can get hotel rooms. So, besides that,
I can't help
um,
you.
yeah, let me see what's going on here. We have coming up, we have Wins and Losses, episode 9 on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We have AI Roundup, episode 27 on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. The best 15 minutes of AI in the entire MSP channel. We have MSP Dispatch, Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. And then this week, right after 10 a.m., after MSP Dispatch at 11 a.m. Eastern, we will have the new time for MSP Community Live. And so it's pretty cool. And actually, since I believe ITNC goes through Friday or it finishes on Thursday. I don't know, but let's see if we can do an MSP community live from ITNC since we'll both be there. That'd
I
be
think
cool.
what this means is we just have to change the date
Yeah,
if we have to.
it's
We'll
not a
make it
problem.
happen.
Always have to change stuff around that week anyway. Because I don't let the shows take hiatus. We do them all. I just torture my staff and be like, I don't care if we're at ITNC. We're still doing it. So
Yeah, let's do it. That'll be fun.
it'll be fun. And maybe we can do a live Q&A instead of pulling stuff from Reddit. That'd be kind of nice.
That'd be really fun. We should do that.
Yeah. All right. We'll figure out the logistics. I'll throw one more thing at Corey. Poor Corey. She hates me at this point. All right. So
She hates me too. It's okay.
that's fair. All right. All right. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us on MSP Community Live, the best hour and change of current MSP events going on every week. We appreciate the hell out of you. And until next week, take care of yourselves and each other.